of the Should I Be Nervous?
A podcast? This is your first? That's that is a great way to kick this off. Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the Ruck and Rise podcast. I'm solo tonight. Ali had to work, and so it's just going to be me. But not just me. My good friend Shaun Taylor is with us. Shaun, just give us a quick intro. You've been on the podcast a few times, so familiar face. But yeah, just a brief little intro on your background.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Shaun Taylor. I've been on the Ruck and Rise podcast previously. I'm also involved in some other podcasts such as The Collective and The Gold Mine. I've been a guest on a number of other podcast platforms, and to date, I'm hanging out around 1,000 or so of these kind of conversations. Digital conversations, as it were. Some of those conversations have been with really good friends like Dave, and sometimes Ali is here as well. And some of the podcasts have been with strangers that I know literally nothing about. And so, as as we were coming into the podcast, I said, "Should I be nervous? Is this?" But I am not that nervous about podcasting anymore. However, I must state that when I first started podcasting, it was a bit nerve-wracking, and those early days are something that I try not to think too much about.
Yeah, amazing. So over a thousand podcasts
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah,
To be fair, to be honest, I suppose between the Gold Mine and the Collective, well over 500 podcasts, and then when I grab some of all the other shows that I've been on, I'm probably up at around coming up on 600. But then I've got my own nonsense,
right.
the live in five that I used to do. And I kind of, since they're live and they were podcasty style or more one way direction, I suppose, I kind of lump those into live mic time or time on the mic or, you know, doing the
Yeah,
grind. And
yeah,
so, yeah, I've grinded.
yeah, yeah. You've done a few, and I think we'll touch into that as well. Kind of the evolution of how the podcast game has gone for
Mm,
you and Chance,
and you.
your co-host of the collective. Yeah, and myself and
Mm,
Ali is along the way as well. Where we started to where we are now, and yeah, how things have evolved. I did want to touch on. So I was listening to. Um, an episode of the Collective podcast a couple of days ago on my drive home from work, and it was in relation to the veteran photo contest that's
oh, yeah,
been
right. Veteran.
ongoing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
contest
over
number
the
three.
last
You're
little
right, right.
while. Yeah, so
Landscapes.
landscapes. Yeah, that was the most recent one. So
Hmm.
this is round three,
Hmm.
and um, I managed to pull off a fifth fifth place out
Dude,
of.
I thought it was going to go higher. I really did. I
And
thought you
I
were going to get
thought
in the top three.
and I looked at the photos that were lined up there, and when Chance put them all up, and I thought, wow, like there's
Me too.
some
Yeah,
incredible photos here,
yeah,
and
agreed.
and I'm learning as I go. And you made a comment at the end of the episode, sort of kind of questioning me, asking if I had sort of doubled down on this submission
Hmm.
and this photo that two photos that I submitted, and
Thank you
into.
for us. Thank you for paying attention to my question and maybe giving me an answer. I love
Well,
this.
there you go. Yeah, yeah. And I did. And unfortunately, when I was trying to follow during the podcast, and where we live, Lakefield, I was picking up our little guy from school. Reception is shoddy there, so
Okay.
I ended up losing the podcast. So later on, I realized that there were some questions put out there. So I did want to address one of them,
Hmm.
and specifically that question, whether I had doubled down, because you sort of mentioned that you noticed that I kind of stepped up my game
Well, from
with
my
these photos.
perspective, it looked like you doubled your outcome. And so it's not that so you'd taken a photo in the last competition, and it was the dogs in midair, both dogs, and that was a great photo. But like there was, from my perspective, there was some minor technical sort of things that you could address, and as we were saying to everyone that was in the competition, we were technically assessing and vibe assessing and all that good stuff. And I thought your photo was great, but there was some minor things that needed, in my opinion, some work on. But in this round, whether you doubled down your efforts or not is neither here nor there to me. It felt like you had. It seemed that you had. My pers- perspective on it was that I was perceiving you really made an effort, but like not that you hadn't been making an effort before. It felt like you had, as I said, doubled down. So, was I right or wrong?
You're right. And a lot of it was based off of feedback, because
Mm,
I'm learning as I go. And,
we
and
all are.
I
Yeah.
love photography. I
Mm,
love taking photos and I love the individual art that comes with it because what I see and what I'm looking at through the lens is unique to me, right?
well, it
and
is.
and
Yeah.
same with yourself and whoever's looking through the lens. So what I'm trying to pick up is very I think unique and artistic to myself, my personal view.
Yeah.
But it's been great since the beginning. Those you know photo contest number one versus two and three. And so I'm listening to Pat Miller
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and his feedback and your feedback, and you guys have far more experience than I do with photography. But the learning that I'm gaining from it is exponential. And so
Mm,
from contest one to two, I'm trying to listen, and I'm also looking at the other photos that
yeah,
are
that's right.
submitted, and kind of going, okay, so I think like maybe I barely squeaked by on points on this one, and if
Right.
I want to be in the running for the next one, I have to step up my
You
game. Like I've
gotta.
got to double down,
You gotta.
So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's where it went into this third contest,
Mm,
and now we have a fourth one coming up, or you guys have a
mm,
fourth one coming up. Related to service, right?
mm,
And so, and now I'm going to step it up even more because
that's right.
I
Yeah.
know that the level is that much greater now.
It's
We've
always going to
we've
be the way, though.
exactly,
Right.
and sort of my point. I continue to try and bring my level up a notch to maintain a certain standard that is set and established through some experienced individuals and some knowledgeable individuals that are trying to have everyone kind of level up as they go.
Raising all
So
boats, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So every contest that's put out there, the level is going to be rising and rising, and so that means that my skill and abilities, and I have to kind of constantly think how I can tweak things or how I can do things differently if
Hmm.
I'm going to stay in the game and if I'm going to stay in the run.
Relevant.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
right. But you know what I love about that is, the fate of the world isn't resting on getting on the podium of the photo competition, of course. But for certain people like yourself, like myself, a number of people that love a good game, love a good competition. And it's not that, like, if you and I enter into the same competition, it's not that I want to beat you because you're Dave. I just love a good competition. I want to beat everyone, including myself. And so I am my own most ferocious competitor. I will compete against Shaun every day. And so I like these kind of competitions where, for yourself, you've picked up what we're putting down. You've got the right positive vibe. The message that you're putting across is what we're trying to put across, and I think that's great. And sometimes it takes competitions like this, and even though it's a little competition, it's not super formal and it's not very well known. But sometimes little competitions like this are far less about who's going to win first, second, or third prize. They're way more, for me, they're way more about how to make people think differently. And so the photos will be what they'll be. But along the way, over the next remaining months that we've got for this year-long competition, my goal is to make people think differently, not just make them better photographers.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And it carries on, it carries over into so many other aspects in
Mm-hmm.
life, right? Like, so it's a photo competition, but now, and I'm, kind of trying to step up my game, and I'm trying to do things a little bit more technically, with technical improvements and that sort of thing. But it also forces me to look at other aspects in my life
It
and think
does.
about, okay, I did this well, but how can I do it better next time? For example, yeah, the rucksack march for remembrance that
Mm-hmm.
we just wrapped up over the weekend. Um, it was another successful year, very successful event, but the wheels are already turning to move ahead and look ahead to next year. So what can we do differently? How can we make it better? How can we get more people on board and like-minded people that want to, come out and walk? We had some people that came out and walked 22 kilometers. First time they had done that in a very, very long time, or
Mm.
maybe that was the first, in one go
Mm.
distance that they had tackled. And so, maybe next year they come out and they put a little more weight on their back, or something like that. But however we're able to influence others to want to do a little bit more than next year than they did this year. So I'm already kind of got the wheels turning and looking ahead to next year to see what
That's
improvements
perfect.
are going to be made. So.
Yeah, I got a question for you on that on the march. Which, by the way, from my perspective as a greater than arm's distance sort of observer, so it's not like I have any inner circle knowledge. It's not like I'm tightly sort of read into what's going on the day to day. I'm more of a just a casual observer as to the march. It looked like it was a successful march, of course, but how would you distinguish this year's versus last year's? And by distinguish, I mean it doesn't have to be better, worse, or neutral. It's just got to be how would you say the A B comparison was?
Great question. I'm glad you brought it up. Ali and I, yeah, just recently had this conversation about this year's Ruck March in comparison to last year's. And what was notable was the conversations that were happening,
Hmm.
and the deeper level of conversations, and
Why? Why is
some
that?
of the sorry.
Why is that?
Um, that's a great question. Hard to say. Um, I
Well,
think
first guess.
there was a little bit more. Um, it was a real positive vibe. So it was a
So
really
it wasn't as positive last year.
it was positive. Yeah, there was something I can't put my
So
finger on
so
it.
you're saying it was more positive this year?
I'm saying it was more positive this year. It
Okay,
could just feel it.
but why?
Great
Was it
question.
weather? Was it the birds singing louder? Was it like less traffic? Was it a different hat? Was it,
Well,
you know,
different routes.
everyone had matching socks. I mean, what
Yeah.
was it?
Well, part of it could have been, yeah, different route. So we changed things up. We took feedback from the year before where we were doing a lot of 1 kilometer laps to kind
Hmm.
of complete the 22 kilometers. And that wasn't, overly, it wasn't the
It was
greatest.
no winner
So,
for everyone. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So this year we extended the route, and we took it out to Trent University, some more scenic areas within
Hmm.
Peterborough. And I think and based off that, there was a lot of positive feedback just while we were walking about just being in nature and
Oh,
how we
great.
were
Yeah.
in Peterborough, but it didn't feel as if we're in Peterborough. Um,
So
Peterborough,
literally, the birds were louder.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Fantastic.
that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but the conversations were, positive, but also almost like problem solving in a sense
Hmm.
where I'm having conversations with a nursing student, sorry, and she's telling me about the challenges that she's having with other students or other peers that are really, really apprehensive to do some of the hands-on stuff that's necessary and required within the nursing profession and within the curriculum,
Mm.
and how frustrating it is for her to, try to bring them out of their shells and have them realize, like, this is a profession that is hands-on, and you have to be fairly assertive, and you have to be communicate well, well communicating. And so it was a really good conversation to talk about, and this is kind of why I wanted to have this conversation tonight about sort of how standards, or certain level of standards, are established, and how they're maintained, and how others try to make sure that those standards are maintained. And it what I was getting from this student was, um, within her personal level of standards or expectations, those peers weren't meeting those expectations. So it was frustrating for her, which was a good thing, I think, to hear, because it was kind of reinforcing that, there's certain jobs and there's certain areas of life that do require a standard level that has to be maintained, or maybe that's not the right place for you, sort of thing. So
Mm.
um, yeah, so I'll get your thoughts on on that.
On standards.
Yeah, well,
Well,
on even establishing standards.
I'm a big proponent of standards. I always have been, and well, I say I always have been. I wasn't a proponent of standards until I was taught what the standard can produce as an outcome. And so before I joined the military, I didn't understand what the standard is. And it took me probably a couple of years in the military to kind of start understanding the standard. But before I continue any further, I want to delineate, or I want to distinguish I want to establish the difference between personal standards and institutional standards, or group standards, or the larger body standard. And so, as I was listening to you talk about the young nurse, and how perhaps they were frustrated about the standards not being met, the first thing that went through my head is, whose standards? Hers, theirs, the organization's, society's? The standards she read about in the newspaper this morning? The standards exist everywhere. Some of them are relevant and some of them are inconsequential. And so I think before a person starts talking about the standard, which the standard are we talking about? Because it can apply to many different things. My personal standard generally, I, I try to make my personal standard higher than the group standard. So if I'm in an institution and the standard is X, I'm striving for a personal standard that is X plus one, or X times three, whatever the case is. So my personal standard and institutional standards can be different. One can drive the other, as can one drive the other. At scale, standards tend to be driven down, but at scale, you can still drive standards up. It's just a long, hard walk on broken glass all the way uphill sometimes to change the standard at an institutional level. But you got to try anyway. So there's personal standards, institutional standards. So did you have any questions on that? That makes sense, right?
It does make sense, and I had the same train of thought
Mm.
with that, developing. Obviously, we have a foundation that's sort of created with personal standards from, I would say, a very young age, for the most part. Whether it's your parents or your peers, or
Well, they can be
family.
created. It doesn't mean that they are the right standards.
Good
Standards
point.
are standards exist throughout our life, and some of them are just total crap, and some of them are imagined, and some of them are burdened onto us. Like, standards are 360 from top to bottom around us all the time. It's what we choose to acknowledge or select or let into our lives or create ourselves. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I do, and yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to the environment that you're you're in and the people that you surround yourself with, um, because I know my level of standard or my standards has increased. I think kind of year after year, and a lot of it is
I think it
based
should.
off of, yeah, right, and a lot of it is based off of who I'm surrounding myself with, and who I'm following and who I'm looking at, for kind of inspiration, and to see the next level, to make sure that I'm not only maintaining it but trying to strive for higher, than I was previously. And so, and I think it comes down to a lot of people, unfortunately, I think these days get stuck in a particular situation or circumstances, and they get very comfortable,
Mm.
and it's easy to get comfortable, and because it's challenging
Well, you've
to
established your
level up.
standard.
Which is
Yeah.
their standard, or
Hmm.
someone. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. And so, unfortunately, like we've noticed, Allie and I have noticed over the last few years, um, we have a great circle of friends. We have a great group around us, and we have a great peer support group. But what we've noticed is, some friends or people that we've interacted with over the years have sort of kind of fallen off, and it's not because we directly stopped spending time with them, intentionally. It just sort of, we kind of, I think, kept going in a direction that took us to want to continue to level up and setting more goals, and their standard was you know established, and that's where they kind of want to stay. So what's I want to get your take on, if you've noticed that in your life. I mean, your personal situation, you've obviously are around some individuals that have, I would say, very, very goal driven, very goal oriented. But how have you found that within your own life?
Well, I have found it. In fact, it's the story of my life to some degree. And I want to be careful and state that I'm not that unique. But as I move from career to career, when I left my first career, which was the military, into my second career, I didn't look backwards very much. And so my standard, as it were, that I'd bring with me into my new industry or new task or new life choice, the standard that I would take with me, that that would allow me to start building out my next standard. And so all along the way, like I've left many people in the rearview mirror, not because I'm any better than them or because I was moving faster or because they were stuck in mud and I was learning how to fly. It's nothing to do with that for me. I've left people behind because I've allowed my life to stay kinetic. I've allowed my life to move hard to the left and hard to the right and way up and way down. I move maybe three dimensionally, and not look backwards too much as to I'm stuck on that standard. My standard is constantly evolving. But what I will say is this, Dave, that if you are not focused on aggressive growth, but if you have a very open mind and a curious mind, and you like to achieve things, you like to create things, you prefer outcomes rather than dreams, then eventually people will get left behind, because not everyone is driven that way. And so you've already said it, comfort will keep people locked in place. Whereas if you can become comfortable in not being comfortable, then you will end up moving to other places, which will leave people behind. And it is the nature of life. I don't worry too much about that. In fact, I don't. It's not even a part of my considerations. It's not how I think anymore. I mean, I've had a ton of good friends that I wish them all the best, but I just don't know where they are right now
Mhm.
because I have moved on and not moved on ahead of them. I've simply moved on. And something else that I want to throw in there in respect to what you were referring to as the standard, your standards have shifted, and that's taken you in a new direction. When you look at the word standard, and we just recently talked about this in a podcast with, I think it was John Daly, John Gronsky, Major General retired John Gronsky, and Mike Burke. And so we were talking about this subject to some degree, the standard. And so it was John Daly, I believe, that said the standard comes from the term the standard bearer. And so within military organizations, the standard bearer would have like sometimes it was a spear with a flag on the top, sometimes it was a whatever. Going back millennia, the standard bearer would be bearing the representation of the unit that they were fighting in or were serving within. And that standard, as you know, Dave, the standard that was flying at the front of the battle, men would men would give away their lives to protect the standard. Like if there was a wave of oncoming enemy to take the standard, to take the battle flag, men would sacrifice their lives to protect the standard, to protect the flag. But that isn't the case anymore. And so the standard bearer used to go up to the front of the battle, slam that thing in the ground and hold it. Hold that standard. But that isn't the case. In fact, what we have more often than not is an acceptance of a backward sliding standard, which the word that I used in the podcast as we were talking about it is cowardly. Because when you put it into the referential state of the standard bearers at the front of the battle and is representing the entire battle unit, that that dude would never backstep because that would be cowardly. But in
Mhm.
today's society, it's okay to backslide on your standard because no big deal, everyone's doing it and it's okay nowadays. But I don't subscribe to that. I feel very strongly about the standard. And it's maybe luck that when I was a young man growing up, that the standard that was taught to me in my first career was taught in such a way that I feel like it's in my freaking DNA now. Like
Mhm.
whether it was beaten into me, whether I ate it, or whether I breathed it, the standard in me now is cast in stone as to the standard is the standard and you will meet the standard.
Mhm. Um, what do you think it is with society that's let it slide so much? That
I think
the
it's
standard.
it's the normalizing of it, Dave.
Mhm.
Like you'll never see me normalizing the backsliding of the standard
Mhm.
ever. If you are ever in my company and you see me turn a blind eye to something that it obviously needs to correct, wow, I don't turn a blind eye. In fact, um, you know, being that I'm a Patricia at heart, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, and that, of course, I was in 2 Commando. 3 Commando was made up mostly of RCR. And so their motto from the RCR is never pass fault.
Mhm.
And given that 2 Commando and 3 Commando used to work quite closely together, like I used to hear those boys talk about that all the time, never pass fault, never pass fault. Like I don't know what it was about the RCR, but that was something that they said a lot back in the day. And maybe they still do. But I heard it so much that I started owning it myself. And I know that it isn't truly a Patricia thing, but I feel like it's part of my DNA as well from those guys. And so, to your point earlier, like who you're surrounded by will set the tone for who you become. And so the RCR to some degree set the tone for me on standard. Never freaking pass fault, boys.
Yeah, and I agree. And regardless whether it's RCR or who says it, it should be everybody motto. you know,
Well, it should.
never
But you know
pass a
what?
fault. It's not.
Why did I listen at that time? Because I was young and I was impressionable, and some of those guys were, larger than life. They were legendary in my eyes, and so if they were saying something, I was picking up what they were putting down.
Mhm.
But nowadays, like, I don't know if there's enough people who are quote unquote legendary that are saying it, but like I'm not seeing it a lot, so maybe society is letting it slide because there's not enough, hard chargers that are just dropping the good good word like it was being dropped a couple of decades ago.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find that group, and I'm trying to maintain that group because I'm starting to use the kind of motto, I'd rather be, part of the solution than part of the problem, right?
Mm.
So if I can lead by example and show that, I'm leveling up for that next contest, or I'm leveling up for whatever it is, the next phase. Um, Maybe it's just going to influence somebody else alongside me to do the same.
But
Because
that's a plan built on hope,
right, right.
and I do it myself.
Hmm.
It's a passive strategy of, I'm just gonna do me. I'm gonna do the best version of me. Maybe someone sees that it's a good way of life, and maybe they'll pick up what I'm putting down passively, and that's what I hope. So
Yeah,
I've got a hope plan as well, but I don't think the hope plan is enough. You know?
I don't think it's enough either,
Yeah.
and I wish it was. And I pleasantly surprised and approached about a month ago. A friend of mine sent me a DM on Instagram, said, "I think you should check out this guy. I think you guys would connect pretty well." And so I looked him up, and his Instagram handle is the Unbreakable Man.
Mm.
And Jason Reynolds, local guy.
Give
Uh,
me 24 hours and I'll freaking break him.
I know.
12.
Yeah. Well, I foresee in the next year, like he and I in this group now, we're going to be trying to break one another, which is great
That's
because
good.
it's awesome. And so when I looked him up and then I listened to some of his messages, and I thought, yeah, this is somebody that I want to connect with.
That's good.
And so, he's creating this sort of men's group. I wouldn't call it a support group, but a men's group that just want to be doing more than what they're
Mm.
doing right now. So, we
But
meet
why?
once.
Why does whoever started it, why do they want men to do more? And before
Um,
you give me the answer,
mhm.
I'm going to give you I'll grease the runway for you, because there's a lot of men out there that are starting up these kind of groups for all kinds of reasons. And it ranges from the dude is totally lost himself, and how he's going to find himself is to find a bunch of other lost dudes, and they're going to wander around in the wilderness lost. So, all the way from there, right through to the other side, which is another dude who doesn't know what he's talking about but wants to make a quick buck. So, he's going to start a program, etc. And so, those are the two worst case scenarios, we'll call it. Somewhere in the middle is a whole bunch of other groups trying to do it a whole bunch of other different ways. And so I always ask, okay, why? Why is that group trying to do what they're trying to do? Because the cliche statement, the easy statement, the trite answer is, well, we're just tired of, we want to do better. No, there's something deeper there. And has everyone talked about it within the group? I would put $10 down and say that the group as a whole, the Unbreakable Man group, or various groups, most members in any group don't know why they're there. And ironically, the group as a whole, whoever started off, also doesn't know why they're there. And so my question is now, with a greasy runway, why?
Yeah, great question. Um, and I think it was on our first walk. We went for a hike together.
Hmm.
We met, kind of did some intros, and we went for a hike. And that question was sort of thrown out there, like, what do we want from this group? What are we trying to? And so we tried to establish, or we have established, a purpose, because you're right, you could just end up with a group of guys that are just going for a hike, just
Or
wandering
just
around
yelling loud
and just yeah,
and
exactly.
punching trees.
Yeah, or you can sort of define a purpose, and so we worked on that, and a lot of it is community driven. Basically, I mean, we want to improve the community that we live in,
Well, I
and
did see that, and that seemed to me like a alchemy sort of process that's going to draw everyone together, creating good community service, but also forming up the group as a whole for whatever reason. But you ain't all together for the community service. So there's always
no,
a deeper why, and
there's
it
always a
ain't
deep.
and
You're
it ain't
right.
to pick up garbage.
It's not, and I can say I can only speak for. It might be something. It might be a question for to pose each individual member as to their why. Why are they here? What are they trying to achieve, and what are they trying to accomplish? So really, I can only speak to myself,
Mm.
and it comes down to being around more like-minded individuals that are trying to that maybe I can be competitive with, in a sense that maybe we're going to do some physical fitness challenges, and maybe I'm going to find another layer of myself that I can sort of unfold and unravel, and will take me to another level. So yeah, for me personally, it's trying to find other people that also want to I don't know, yeah, challenge themselves to doing more things, and doing more hard things, I should say, because that's
So is
kind
it
of
fair
the
to is it fair to categorize you as you're seeking, you're seeker mode, you're
yes,
seeking,
yeah,
cur- curiously seeking.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
okay, so
And I
there.
was curious when it came out.
So when the rest of the group is all showing up, do you think they're all curious seekers? I bet they aren't. I
Well,
bet they aren't.
no,
Not all of them. I said all. And
yeah,
so there'll be people who showed up because they had some spare time that night. There'll be people who showed up because their buddy freaking forced them into it or cajoled them into it or said, I'll drop you off at your house on the way to the meeting and then just never drop them off at the house. There'll
mhm.
be people there that even aren't supposed to be there. And so, but they're there. And so, why are they there?
It's I now I'm more curious,
Mm.
and now I want to have more conversations with them because yeah, I would love to sort of pick their brains a little bit deeper and find out because I would say there's a few that certainly are maybe curious to see what evolves from this, what comes of this. Um, I I certainly connect quite well with Jason himself.
Mm.
I think we have a lot of similarities, and I think it's just a natural friendship that
Mm-hmm.
develops there, and maybe that's even part of it too. Is that there's just something missing in their lives, and maybe it's a friendship connection that they're seeking or they're looking for. Um,
And
but
those are all good things. But you know
they
what?
are.
They're, they're, it takes so long to discover the thing that you're looking for that you don't know what you're looking for.
Hmm.
And so if you show up on day one and you don't even know why you're there, how many days did it take you to realize why you're there? And then once you realize, then, do you get to work then or are you curious about? And so, you know, any new group, I think it's important to establish the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And it's got to be done in a way that is cool for everyone. It can't be a briefing, it can't be a one-way delivery, but it has to be done.
Hmm.
Because if there's 10 people in that room for that, whatever your eighth meeting together, or whatever the case is, as you start at number one and work your way all around to the table to number 10, I'll bet you get 10 different answers as to why each of those people are there. Now, maybe as a conglomerate, maybe as a whole, all of those opinions will form up the actual broader sense of the why of the group. But I'd say that right now, if that hasn't been like a very clear discussion, then the group is drifting already.
I would agree. I would agree. And
With good
yeah,
intention,
yeah,
a group can get together with the best of intention, but on day one, it's already drifting.
hmm hmm yeah. Good point. Yeah, I am. Now I'm very curious. I think we'll
Mm.
have some more conversations as we kind of move forward with what.
Which are all good things, of course.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Um, I wanted to touch. It's interesting. I wanted to jump back a little bit. You're talking about a little bit about military standards, and it kind of triggered my memory to Iron Warrior competition. You're familiar with the Iron?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was before the pandemic, anyways. Before 2019 was the last Iron Warrior competition that I did with my good friend Sean Francis, and he won it on day one, and then and that there was easily a standard established within that Iron Warrior competition, and I found it really unfortunate to see the decline. When they sort of brought it back into 2021, I think maybe, and the way they brought it back, it's now a shorter distance. You can opt to do it in running shoes, and then the weight is dependent on your body weight as well. So I I'll be honest, I found it a little bit frustrating to see that standard that had been set for so long had lowered, had decreased.
Hmm.
and and I think when it comes to personally, I think when it comes to any profession in uniform, um, or a profession of arms, I don't think that the standards should be ever deviated. So it's unfortunate that that's where it slid to, and but I think it goes on par with what we were saying about society, just sort of having that sliding scale in the wrong direction, and I just I guess I wanted to get your thoughts on uh, maybe a little bit about the military standards, if possible,
Yeah,
because
sure.
they've dropped a bit. So.
So I don't know how much, and it's quite frankly unimportant how much they reduce the standards on that particular competition. It's enough just to say that they were reduced. And so, with that in place, if they were reduced, then again, I'll state I'm not concerned with by how much. I only want to know the why. Why did you reduce it? And so I would have liked to have been in the meetings to hear the rationale behind that. And I can only imagine that the rationale was one of two things. The first one would be that given the current crop of Canadian citizens that we're seeing in the Canadian Armed Forces, they are soft and weak and they can't meet the standard, so we're adjusting it downwards. So there's one option, which I would hope isn't the reason that they were doing that for, but maybe it is. The other reason is that maybe someone in the meeting just thought that we don't like setting standards so high that people can strive for them. What we like to do is set standards that people can roll out of bed and meet. And so the standard, as it were, is within the Canadian Armed Forces as a whole, I feel is a cultural thing. The moment that you start diluting the standard, it's a cultural statement and it's coming from the top, as far as I'm concerned. The top is saying, take it easy. The standards have been lowered because we don't train you hard enough. Now, that's what I hear in my head when I hear standards have been lowered. And so, whose fault is that? Is it the crops of the current crop of modern Canadians who are joining the military are physiologically different than when I joined the military in 1983? Are we physiologically different? I don't think so. I think what has happened is culturally things have changed. There is more acceptance to perhaps mediocrity versus what the Canadian Armed Forces needs as a whole is large and in charge, right at the front, taking care of business. And I mean hardcore taking care of business, because that's what the Canadian Armed Forces is built for. It was never built to fill sandbags when floods are occurring in Canada, though that is one of the things it does. The Canadian Armed Forces is built for one reason and one reason only: lethality, national defense, national offense, just like the infantry. Close with and destroy the enemy. But you won't hear that in a modern advertisement from the Canadian Armed Forces nowadays. That's what we're supposed to do, but you won't hear it being said. And that is the case when I feel standards are being discussed, is we know the standard is hardcore, but because we don't need you to be super hardcore this very second, take a seat, dial it back a bit. That's what I hear when I hear the standard is backsliding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think I'm hearing the
But am
same
I off
thing.
base? Is like, are we the only ones who are thinking that?
No,
Because my friends think the same way as well.
exactly,
Yeah.
and so do mine, and
Mm-hmm.
that's probably why they're our friends,
Mm-hmm.
because
I
those are the
suppose.
people that we're associating with.
Kind of
That
keeping it real.
exactly, exactly.
And I'm not here to upset anyone. I'm not here to offend anyone. I'm not here to say, if you can't meet the standard, then bounce. I'm not saying that. What I
No,
am saying is, if you can't meet the standard, pull up your socks and get to work and meet the standard, or
that's right.
bounce.
That's right. Yeah.
You know.
I had a conversation with my son over the weekend. So the oldest, Landris, he's in the reserves in the same unit that I'm in, and and I'm quite proud that he's there, because he's trying to do hard things, which is great.
It's admirable.
Um, it is, and so the rucksack march, he had actually signed up to do the rucksack march for remembrance, but then it ended up falling on a training exercise weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So he opted to go on the training exercise weekend, which I would have pushed him to go that direction anyways, because he's going to get a lot more value out of that. And it's admirable, and I'm proud of him for doing that, because it's reserves world, right? So there is the option not to go. There's the option that could have stayed home. He could have done the rucksack march. Maybe it would have been a little bit easier than going, to spend 72 hours, whatever it was, in the hooch and down to -1 or whatever. Not terribly cold, but still uncomfortable. But it was great to see that, at his age, 22 years old, he was looking to do something that really took him out of his comfort zone, or
Mm-hmm.
most 22-year-olds' comfort zone, and challenge himself and do some hard things, not get a lot of sleep, get yelled at, and make mistakes, but learn from them. And so, I gotta give him props for making that life choice and making that decision to
Agreed.
do something hard. And I hope that, my hopes are that more his age, because I think it's more and more of a challenge these days to find the younger generation sort of stepping up to a certain level or a certain standard
But
that they
I
want to
don't I
hit.
don't hold them to blame.
No,
I only
it's
hold leadership to blame. Period.
exactly. You're right.
Exclamation mark and period.
Right.
It's simply the will of leadership that is letting the standard slip. Period. And I feel that the reason that it is slipping is because some of those people who should be holding that standard are looking down at themselves and realizing that they don't meet the standard. And if they
Mhm.
can't meet the standard, they can't enforce the standard, because if they did, they'd be hypocritical, which is also occurring. And so now we've got this problem of people trying to enforce the standard who can't meet the standard. It becomes a hypocritical standard, and then everyone turns away and nothing gets done about it. That is the cold hard truth.
It is. And yeah, and it's part of the reason that even myself, I go back to, I can either be part of the solution or I can be part of the problem, and I'd rather try and be part of the solution. That being said, I'm not always part of the solution because I wasn't there on the weekend, right? So even me in the rank of corporal, even a senior corporal, though, I can have an influence on leadership in the field or as a leader in the field, and so I'm not there to help it, right? So and there's times that I'm not.
But you are, because there's I should have said this at the start when we started establishing what standard can be or can't be or may not be. One of the things that is interesting through the standard is the influence of the standard. And you didn't have to be there this weekend. You didn't have to be anywhere. You'd established your own standard influences within the culture of that organization and within your son moons ago, a long time ago. And so I feel, and maybe I'm off base, you can tell me, but I feel that the standard that I live in my life has impacted people months ago and will impact people months from now. Just simply by being very precise, and the standard is the standard, and you'll meet it or you'll move along. And so, I'm sure your son has heard that from you in the past, a strong stance on the standard. And therefore, your stance is his stance. And
Mhm.
he may not explain it the same way as you do. But the people that are his age and that are within his circle of influence, he's already influencing them with your standard if you did your job well.
It's a good point. You're right. Yeah, and yeah, and I'm still there's still lots, yeah, outside of the uniform that I think that I'm able to do from a leadership role.
Well,
That
you are right now.
well, there you go. Yeah,
There you
it's
go.
true. We're having this
Mm-hmm.
conversation. Um, yeah, we had, as we talked about earlier, very successful event on the weekend, and I'm always looking for the next thing, and I'm always looking for the next thing to do.
Why? Why?
Um, oh boy, that's great. I because I want to challenge myself, and
And
and I want to learn.
so if you want to challenge yourself and you want to learn, what about the other several billion people on the planet? Because then it could just be Dave's life. And I know
Mhm.
that's not how you live your life. So it ain't just about your challenges or the next thing for Dave, or Dave wants to beat Dave, or because that ain't you. That's only a little part of you. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. And again, I'm the most competitive with myself,
Mm-hmm.
and there is I do. I know it's going to sound cliche, and you know, um, but I do want to leave my environment or the world better than um, leave it better than I came into it, sort of thing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I want to bring people up along the way.
But
But
it
I
isn't
do.
said, Dave. So like I truly do feel that at a deeper level, that's really what we're talking about, and that's what you're about. And so, as we're speaking a little bit deeper now, how come that isn't said very much, by a bunch of guys out there? How come it's so difficult to like drop down into the basement level and start speaking about the real fundamental reasons why you do things?
I wish I had the answers
Well,
for that.
I'm
Yeah.
not challenging you to give
Hmm.
me the answer. I'm just
No.
saying, why is it that, like, particularly dudes, just we'll skip right on to the next subject as long as there's a surface level answer being given, like, yeah, just because all ships, they all rise anyway, what were we talking about, like, how come we are reluctant to go so deep, you know
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, Allie and I have these conversations quite frequently.
mm,
And, and there's a few guys in my life that I can have these conversations. They're really deep ones about, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to do for ourselves? What are we trying to do
what's it
for
all
our
about?
fellow mankind?
Mm,
And it's great when you have them, because there's just such a deeper connection with someone than the superficial
mm,
conversation that's easy for anyone to
check in the
have.
box.
Exactly, check in the box, easy conversation. So when Ali and I have these talks, and we frequently ask ourselves and one another, why? Like, why are we doing? Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to, and a lot of times it comes down to that personal growth of,
Mm,
like, what can we do? Like, it's a lot of curiosity, really.
mm.
Like, I've said it before. I love to learn, and I love learning new things. And I don't think, as humans, that we should ever stop wanting to learn or stop learning. And so there's a great deal of curiosity as to, well, what can I achieve? What can my mind do? What can my body do? I've got one life. Like, why not try and absorb the most out of the brain and the body, and see where it can take me.
So then
Um,
what would you categorize your standard of life as then?
um, on a number scale, or
uh, just in totality, how do you view your life, in the sense of, maybe a strong standard, or maybe a high standard, or maybe a righteous standard? How would you categorize your standard within your life?
I th- I think it's evolved,
That's
over
great.
over time. Um, and I think it's evolved with each sort of new chapter, that, because I came into the military later in life,
Mm,
as a reservist, and so career prior to that in the massage therapy world. There was a standard, and I was always looking to try and rise up even greater with that standard, and set a high standard, and looking to accomplish kind of more and more things, and always seeking the next level with that. And then I came into the military and discovered another level up as far as the standard went. And now I'm sort of, even in my civilian job, and now on the armed security role, in the nuclear industry. Again, I'm still kind of leveling up, so my standards are evolving, almost weekly, really, as to, um, when I
but
when I think I'm
the job isn't driving you to do all that. Your
no.
neighbor isn't driving you to do all that. So, at a fundamental level, like, take it all the way down to the basement, Dave,
Hmm.
at the deepest level, why is that?
um, it's funny. I want to say, the first thing that came to mind was, it's fun. Like, it's fun.
It's a great
It
answer.
it's fun for me. It's almost like a personal game.
Oh, it's a great answer. Not
Yeah,
many people will say that out loud, to be honest.
yeah. But
I
that's
got
the
no,
first
that's how
thing,
I, dude, I say it all the time. Get in the game, play the game with me. Let's go. It's just a game.
right?
Obviously, I'm not minimizing life, but to some degree, there's, there's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah, and it was the first thing that popped into my head was, well, it's fun. It's fun to be curious. It's fun to learn new things, and it's fun to
It's fun
challenge.
to play a good game.
That's it. Yeah.
Hmm. And a good
So
game is a hard game. And so, an easy game is not a fun game.
no.
It's an easy game is a game that puts you to sleep. But then a game that's too tough is one that keeps you thinking about it and you can't go to sleep. And so it's getting the right balance on the game, of course, the right
Yeah.
balance on the standard, the right
Yeah.
balance on it all. And so you've already raised the point that it's been an evolutionary process for you as you move through the ideas of leadership and parenting and jobs and the standard and all of that good stuff. Like it is an evolutionary process, and maybe that's one of the most important points in this conversation is that the standard does evolve. Your personal standard does evolve, and institutions slowly they also evolve their standard. But the standard is something to strive for and surpass, in my opinion. And so it's that surpassing that should cause the constant evolutionary process. Dave, if you didn't feel like your standard was evolving, it would simply tell me that you ain't in the game.
Mhm.
And, it tells a lot about a person.
Right. It's funny, before we started the podcast, you made a joke and said, I'm going to flip things around here. And, and,
I
and
did.
as I'm here, I'm answering these questions, it just caught me. I went, wait a minute.
You're
He
welcome.
really flipped it around here.
It is a game. And
Yeah.
you may have heard me
I'm
say
answering all these
I love a
questions.
good game within a game within the game.
It's great. I enjoy it too. I thought maybe I'll get Sean's brain working, and I'm sure I did. But man,
It
did you
is
ever
for sure.
flip it and get my brain working? Which,
But this sense of collaboration, whether a person is aware of it or not, which of course you're aware, but this sense of collaboration where it can go in a general direction that is just positive rather than someone has to own the positive direction. I just see it as people moving things in the right direction rather than, a literal standard bearer who's got the flag and is a sole person up at the front, leading the way. I never think of myself as that. Some people have said you're leading the charge, Shaun, and I don't think that way. I really don't. But I don't mind bearing a standard, you know, and
yeah,
planting it in the ground and saying,
yeah.
come get it.
Well, this is why I always enjoy having conversations with Shaun Taylor, because I know I know the wheels are going to be turning, and I know I'm going to be into some deep conversation. I'm going to be putting a lot more thought into answers that come up, and it's great because
It is
it's
good.
challenging me. It's what I asked for, right?
Yeah, it is
It's
good. It
yeah.
challenges me. I challenge myself. I challenge everyone around me, and they challenge me back. And so I will say this, Dave, that, if I'm not challenging the world, then the world won't challenge me. It just, that's what I found. And so I do like to poke and prod and push and create a little bit of friction. And that friction doesn't have to be negative. I've said this in the past. If I'm poking and prodding, some people will hear me when I say that like I'm being a jerk, but it can be a good thing if it's a good game. And I like
Yeah,
playing a good game. And
you've
so,
you've poked me a lot of times over the last couple of years, and
I poke
and and
everyone.
and hey, we're still friends, and we're still going to be friends, because that's what
That's
I
right.
want. It I want to be, yeah, pressure me, give me challenges, yeah, call me out on stuff, and I'll do
Yeah.
some more push-ups whenever it is,
What,
so
by the way, speaking of challenges, so you've nailed a bunch since I've got to know you. And what do you have, like? Do you have anything bubbling up on the horizon that you think you might lock your eye on, or
I do. Well, it'll be the push-up challenge. I'll start the preparation. Well, do push-ups on a daily basis, but it's just it's at a much lower scale than if I'm ramping up to do 24 hours worth of push-ups.
hmm,
Um, that's I think that's probably next on the horizon, which will and I may tie it
you're going to go for
into,
something big, though, right?
well, a bigger number,
But
absolutely.
I mean, like big, big, like all the way big. Dude, I just
Wow,
saw a photo. There's an Australian police officer, and she just broke the world record on chin ups.
how many?
It was 700 and something. I forget. It was some ridiculous amount. Whatever. Like I
Yeah,
just looked at her and I thought, what? But there's a photo of her hanging on the bar, and she's got lats that are a mile wide, and she's got a 47 pack, and she is freaking shreddy McShredded. She looks like a beast, and I
Yeah.
love it, man.
Yeah.
So hardcore.
Yeah.
She just wanted to set a world record and got after it. And you know, whether she gets the record or not, I think she did. Whether she got the record or not, I don't care, man. It's the result that you get on your way to getting the record. And so
Yeah.
I'm saying to you carefully, like I hope it's big because it needs to be big to make the change, you know?
You're right. You're right. Now I'm going to put more thought into it, and now I'm
Yeah,
going to come
sure.
up with
Nothing
something
wrong with
bigger.
that. Thoughts free.
No, that's it. It's the action that
It's
really
the action.
makes the difference. It counts. So I'll have to follow through on whatever it is. So,
Well, you
but
always do.
I
Dream
do, and
bigger, maybe, you know?
yeah,
Wouldn't mind
yeah.
seeing you on the front of a national newspaper or something freaky like that, you know?
Well, maybe I'll surprise you and come up with something totally,
Surprise yourself. Don't
totally.
surprise me. I wouldn't be
Yeah, yeah.
surprised.
Good point. Good point. Well, listen, my friend, it's always great conversation and always a pleasure to have you on the podcast. And we will have you on. And next time, Allie will be with me,
That's right.
and she'll give me a poke when I'm just rambling on. I'm sure,
Ah, there's no rambling this time.
and she'll keep me on track. But but she'll be jealous when she hears this that she didn't get to be a part of it. So we'll have to do another episode, and we'll have
Ah,
to
she's
have
got
her
it
on
locked
here.
down. She's
You
taking
know,
care of business.
she is always is. I have a hard time keeping up with her. You talk about the
Ah, she's
standard.
busy.
That's
Yeah.
there's the house standard is
Yeah.
Allie Curvin
Yeah,
is
agreed.
just
Agreed. She was the
crushes. So
standard when she was out at our house as well. Dave,
yeah.
did you even come on that trip or what?
Uh, you may have seen me in your rear view on the mountain
Trying to
bike,
keep up. Yeah.
trying to keep up. Exactly. All right, Shaun.
All
Thanks
right.
again for joining us tonight. And
Yeah, good spending time. Thank you.
awesome. We will talk soon.
We will. Peace.
Allie didn't give me the
The big red button, Dave.
Cole's notes on. Fumble around for 10 minutes trying to
And
find
the
it. Jeez.
podcast took 4.5 hours.